sin bins.
So you're a fan then, Paul, to sum up,
No,
yeah?
I can't stand it.
Sin bins. Really? We're going to do this now. Welcome to Campfire Football. I'm Sebastian North. One of the things we've seen this season in the Premier League, refs are a lot more strict about dissent. They're giving out yellow cards way more frequently for players just popping off at the mouth, basically. I mean, for instance, Nicholas Jackson received 5 yellow cards in his first 6 Premier League matches, and almost all of those were for dissent. But apparently that's not good enough because now they're looking more into bringing in sin bins. Overall, it's controversial. It's weird. So let's go over some of the pros and cons and how this whole entire thing works. And then at the end, we'll see if we can come to an opinion. The technical term is the temporary dismissal. We're not going to call it that. We're just going to call it sin bin. And how it's been trialed, it's only been used for dissent. Basically, the way it works is if the referee feels that a player has abused them verbally on the field or done something like, throw a ball and be really petulant, they can give them a yellow card and send them to the sin bin. At the grassroots level is basically just the bench or technical area. At the professional level, they might actually build this thing like a penalty box of sorts, which just kind of sounds comical to me. So the guilty player goes off the field and their team plays with that player down for the next 10 minutes. Now the team does not get to sub this player until that time is up. They can sub someone else if they want, but players would be allowed to leave the sin bin area to go warm up. Also, goalkeepers can be sin binned according to the rules. Of course, they can also open their mouths and say bad things. So if the goalkeeper gets sin binned, they have to go off. Now, the team has a choice here. They could leave the goal empty. Obviously, they would not do that. They could put an outfield player in goal. If play is going, like if the ball is rolling and they come back on, they have to come on in an outfield player's shirt and then wait for a stoppage to be able to switch. Really? Okay, so it gets a little more complicated in the way the bookings and cautions get dealt with. Here's a little table that explains it all. So basically, you have your first caution offense, which is dissent, that results in an on-field sanction of a sin bin. And then you have a situation where you have dissent as the first offense, but non-dissent as a yellow card second offense. Those non-dissent cautions would be like a bad tackle or something. This does not actually result in a red card. If you have dissent for the first caution offense and dissent for the second one, this is where you go to the sin bin for the second time. Now, you are unable to come back into the game, but you can be substituted after your second sin bin time has expired. So players basically get soft red carded if both cautions were for dissent. Okay, so now let's go over some of the pros and cons of this whole entire idea. I'm going to start with some of the benefits because, to be honest with you, there aren't many. If it's just limited to dissent, there is kind of an angle here. And remember, a lot of the reasons why respect towards referees is being talked about so much at the pro level is because the idea is that it filters down to the youth level. Now, if you look at some of the results from the trials that they did, they collected some data, and it was interesting to see what they got out of seeing this at Grassroots Football. 72% of players said they liked sin bins and wanted them to stick around, 77% of coaches, and over 80% of referees. That's all well and good. But now the big question is, does this translate to the professional level? So now let's go over the cons. Let's listen to Paul Merson here, because I think he nailed one of the major issues that came to my mind immediately when I heard about this.
You just sit 10 behind the ball and the game would be killed, and then the ball go out and they'll jog and get the ball and they'll throw it in and they'll waste time, and then someone else will get sin bin and someone else, and everybody will be looking at the scoreboard and they'll be going, Tom's coming back on in 4, so-and-so's coming back on in 3, and then what will we be then? We'll be 10v10. And that's how it's going to be. That's not football. They're ruining the game. 10v11 doesn't always work. It kills the game sometimes. And for me, we should be looking at not people kicking the ball away, because someone kicks the ball away, you go, okay, minute on. It's when people are cheating. That's what we got to stop.
So he's right. And this, I think, is the biggest issue right off the bat. This would slow the game down a lot. As Paul Merson says, the game would not just open up and all of a sudden get exciting and goals would be scored by one team. And so then when the other team gets their players back on, they've got to go and attack. And what a back and forth spectacle we would have. No. Everybody who knows football knows that you would see bus parking like you haven't before. And then the amount of time wasting that would go along with that would be just ridiculous. Then how much stoppage time would be added on at the end of the game? Now, obviously, you got to think about player health and everything. And if players are sitting in some chair on the sideline and then have to come on after a few minutes, Yeah, there could be injury risk issues there. Now imagine then you have a situation where 3 or 4 players are yelling at the referee. Well, if all 4 of them are sent to the sin bin, now you have a 9-against-9 game going on. I mean, it would turn into a clown show really fast. Speaking of clown shows, the whole goalkeeper thing is a disaster. Also, again, a time sucker. If you got the goalkeeper needing to come on and then they have to take off their shirt and switch it with the guy, and then they got to get someone to help them put their gloves on because those things are insane. It's a mess. One other thing I cannot stand is the idea of using the sin bin for orange cards or tactical fouls. Now, the idea of an orange card is stupid to begin with. It's a nice term for a commentator to use, but in reality, they are not necessary. You have yellows, you have reds. Now you're just adding a new category of foul.
The whole premise with the tactical fouls, I have no issue. Give it a yellow. And hey, you happen to go off, and you'll think twice about it next time. I like to feel referees more empowered to apply the laws as they are now. None of the spoil the game thing because you sent somebody off. If you approach the referee aggressively, if you say something you shouldn't say, boom, you're off. Simple as.
I agree.
And then there's an even bigger question of like, why this? Like, is this really one of the biggest issues in the game? And so you start to think, who are people who want to put this in place? And then you hear that MLS is one of the bigger leagues that they plan on trialing this in. Big surprise. Here in America, we have proposed larger goals. We have proposed shorter fields. We've proposed all kinds of crazy stuff to try and make the game more exciting. One of the big reasons why all this is happening is because a lot of the stakeholders, big execs in broadcasting, owners of these clubs, they want to see the game cleaned up a little bit in some way, basically so that they can have it as a better viewing product and reach more people. Yeah, so I know that sounds kind of sinister that all these suits somewhere are trying to change the game because they think that a bunch of ruffians are playing it. Look, my opinion on the sin bin is bin it, torch it, get rid of it. Tell me what you think. I'm Sebastian North. This is Campfire Football. Take it easy.